Right, I want to touch on Harvey Elliott. I want to touch on Aston Villa last night in a way, you know. Champion once again, more silverware added to his now bulging cabinet that Harvey Elliott's got. What's the thinking here? Because Arne told us last week, maybe the week before, that he will be heading on pre-season, which we kind of obviously all anticipating, all knew. He'd come back to Liverpool, he'd probably go to the US, as mentioned. Liverpool are still of the mind that he's just not going to be a Liverpool player beyond the summer, I would imagine. But I want to know the interest levels and what they're like, because this has been, for all intents and purposes, a written-off season for Harvey Elliott.
Yeah.
How high can Liverpool set the asking price for Harvey Elliott now after this season? Like, there's loads of different facets to what was 12 months ago a really promising young English footballer who was just about to have a brilliant summer tournament away with England, and now we are where we are, and not much of that is true. He was made up last night to win that competition, which is great for him personally, but his future just seems messy still.
It does, yeah. I mean, I think a lot depends on how Slot views things. I think Harvey wanted to push on and kickstart his career elsewhere because he didn't really get much of a look in on the Slot last season. You know, in Jurgen Klopp's final season, I think he made 53 appearances. I'm not sure how many he made last season, but it was certainly probably not even half that, to be honest. He had that injury, of course, earlier on in the season, but Slot never really gave him a chance, and I think he only started Premier League games after Liverpool had won the Premier League. So a lot depends on whether Slot views him as a different player. I'd suggest after a year of inactivity, probably not, even though he would have been a really useful player to have had around the place this season if he'd have stayed. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Slot is saying the right things at the moment, that he's going to return and you get a look at him in pre-season and all that, but I find it tough. I just don't envision a world where Harvey Elliott stays at Liverpool. And I think they will be looking to speak to clubs who were interested. Leipzig were interested last summer after he told Xavi Simons, could Elliott be used in any talk for Yandy Amandi? Not necessarily as a swap, as they don't tend to happen anymore. But I know when Liverpool struck a deal for Szoboszlai, that initially happened after they were talking about Fabio Carvalho going the other way. So, you know, there's a world in which these two clubs with good relationships can speak and thrash things out. I don't think Leipzig are looking to sell Diamandi as it goes, but you never know. So, yeah, there will be interest, but I think you're right in terms of what's Liverpool's asking price now, because it was a 35 million to Villa. It never came close to triggering that one. So, you know, Liverpool might be man to say, well, this is still a 23-year-old lad who's done this and this in his career, and was he the player of the tournament at the Euros last summer, not even 12 months ago. So he's still got a lot of cachet in terms of his value. So there will be interested parties. It's just a case of how much can Liverpool fetch for him, essentially. And, you know, let's hope that he gets the move that he deserves and he plays, because, you know, just seeing him sort of stagnate at Aston Villa this season was disappointing, wasn't it?
Oh, massively so, yeah. And again, not just because he's a Liverpool player and you don't want to see that happen to any of them, but Harvey is a great lad. Ultimately, just a boy that strip away all the football of it. He's just a good lad who loves Liverpool Football Club for what it's worth as well. But yeah, to see him just have that season, and obviously Unai Emery's come out recently and sort of apologised for it. It's felt like he's just been stuck in the middle of it a little bit. And that was especially the case in January, because I think in January, I can't quite remember why it didn't happen or what was blocking it. And I know the fact he played for Liverpool against Newcastle right at the start of the season meant he couldn't do anything. But it felt like in January there was literally a month-long window there of opportunity to do something to fix it. But for whatever reason, one way or another, it just could never get fixed. And I bet during that time, especially, Harvey Elliott was just sat there like, what's going on? Like, it's such a grim time.
Yeah, well, there was talk of going to Charlotte, wasn't it, to
Dean Smith over there. Billy,
I don't think that was ever really seriously on the cards from the conversations I had. I'm trying to think back to January around that time, and I think from Liverpool's perspective, they were basically of the belief that it was Aston Villa's issue to raise. Essentially, if they wanted to talk about cutting short that deal, or, you know, however it worked, then it was the ball was in their court. Essentially, it wasn't Liverpool's to ring up Villa and say, look, can we have him back? Because I guess that maybe sets a bit of a precedent with these loan moves going forward. So it was on Aston Villa. I think there might have been financial penalties had they looked to have done that. and they didn't really want to fall foul of that because they've got a precarious PSR situation anyway. So I think that's essentially what it's come down to. You know, they have taken a player. It was Monchi who did the legwork on that deal. He leaves about 3 weeks later, and then Villa are in a position where they're absolutely flying. They've got Morgan Rogers, Ross Barkley, Emi Buendia, and, you know, look at the contributions, particularly of Rogers and Buendia in the Europa League final not 24 hours ago. It's hard to say that they've got it wrong in terms of what they've done with Elliott from a football perspective. It's just been a shame that the rules and the red tape have precluded him from moving on in January and going elsewhere. So, yeah, he will return as a Liverpool player with a year wasted, essentially. But there's certainly a player in there, and Liverpool will be fielding offers for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And I wish him, we will come back to Liverpool, but whatever he does do next, I certainly wish him all the best, because, like I say, he's one of football's good guys, Harvey. And not only has he had this year now, just in the wilderness, essentially. We had injury problems. You mentioned he had one the season just gone, but even before that, we had that nasty ankle break up at Elland Road, wasn't it? Yeah, which meant he missed a whole load of time too. So we've had a tough time considering he's only a 23-year-old footballer. Yeah. He's faced a lot of adversity so far. So, yeah, hopefully he has a long and successful career. I mean, he's been pretty successful already, to be fair. But anyway, he's got some Discord questions before we wrap up now. One from Sparrow, obviously. And it's kind of off the back of what we just talked about there, because we talk about losing Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones. He also brings Joe Gomez into the equation because he's basically referring to the lack of homegrown senior players, which I guess on the face of it, from sort of a rules and regs point, is a point, because you do need a certain amount, which Liverpool will definitely fall short of, I think, stands. So will that be in the minds of the recruitment, do you reckon, at Liverpool? Yeah,
it'll have to be, won't it? You know, I think I said to Steve last week that I never really consider it too much, because ultimately these are the sort of, you know, technicalities that need to be, the boxes that need to be ticked, and ultimately are by the administrators and whatever else. But, you know, it's the reason Freddie Woodman was, or one of the big reasons Freddie Woodman was signed last summer, because they needed maybe a third choice goalkeeper who was English. So Freddie Woodman comes in. So yeah, it will be a consideration at a certain point. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the overriding issue in terms of, well, we need someone to replace Mo Salah. Well, he's got to be English.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to go that pronounced, but certainly at certain levels around the squad, you know, the fringes of it, it's something to consider. And, you know, it certainly helped the pursuit of Jeremy Frimpong last summer, for example, who, you know, Holland international, but of course is homegrown because of his years at Manchester City. Joe Gomez is a big tick in that box as well, so Liverpool necessarily wouldn't be offloading him unless they were certain of that not being an issue. But yeah, I mean, we could be saying goodbye to Gomez as well, couldn't we? Because of, you know, I think he spoke after the Chelsea game that his future was up in the air as well. So yeah, there's just so much uncertainty around the club at the moment, not least what European competition they're going to be in next season. So they're just hurtling towards a major summer, and the homegrown quota is, wouldn't say it's a sort of number one consideration, is it? But it's something that they are going to have to look at some stage. So that will inform some of the recruitments, but I don't think it's going to be the first thing that they look at in terms of who's going to be the big stars coming through the doors.
That was a clip from Journo Insight. To check out the whole show, simply download the Redmen Plus app or click the link in the description.